New player reviews first 6 months playing WoW.
6 months ago.
Okay. New player reviews first 6 months of playing WoW. All right. I always like I've been playing WoW my whole life, and it's always fun to see what people think coming into the game as with completely fresh eyes. They don't know what the hell's going on. They're like, what? It's just a great fresh perspective. So new player reviews first 6 months of WoW. Sure, let's see it.
I started playing World of Warcraft, and in the short time I've been in Azeroth, I've learned to kill things, loot things, buy things, and die.
Okay.
A lot. But through all this, I think I finally gained an at least elementary knowledge of this almost 20-year-old game. So here is my review of my experience so far in World of Warcraft.
It's almost more interesting that it's retail because there's a lot to catch up on.
With things like turning into a Beyblade, riding dragons, fighting your way through hordes of enemies in dungeons, and playing Pokemon. As someone who hasn't really played any MMOs, I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I did not expect this.
Hell yeah. Did he roll on an RP realm or something?
You have a lot of options for what race and class you want to be, and I had chosen this Underbite warrior to be my vessel for eventual mass rad destruction. My first step was learning the controls, which involved me pressing almost every button on my keyboard to find something like my inventory.
Wait a minute. Walk around WASD? I am 99% certain the default keybinds. Oh, you know what? WASD, A and D to turn. Q and E is to strafe. I wish I could go back in time and tell you strafe with Q and E. Okay, A and D is for turning. Do not turn with A and D. Use strafe instead. Okay.
Was learning the controls, which involved me pressing almost every button on my keyboard to find something like my inventory. After that was the combat system. My combat style was pretty straightforward. If the button glowed, I pressed button. Just button mashing my way through any form of combat. And over time, I eventually learned what order to press the buttons. And eventually you gain access to a skill tree where you can choose skills and abilities that fit in with your playstyle. But despite my keyboard fearing for its life whenever I saw my foe, I found the combat actually quite enjoyable. Maybe it was because of the class I chose, but there was just something satisfying about becoming a Beyblade and swinging around this big-ass sword and demolishing dinosaurs. And now, you might think that after a while this could get repetitive, but the game manages to offset this by increasing the difficulty of the monsters as you progress. Eventually, bosses and monsters have specific mechanics that you have to learn, but fighting monsters and leveling isn't the only thing to do. There are different mini-games like this one where you have to collect resources to upgrade a fort and invade the opposing fort, or PvP, which I did try, but would pretty much die instantly. Or if you want to do something a bit more chill, there are skills to learn like mining, smithing, collecting herbs, cooking, or fishing. Or sometimes you might stumble across a group of people.
It's really interesting to hear the PvP side of things because so for me, I haven't played that much Counter-Strike in my life, right? Counter-Strike's been out, what, 20, 30 years now? Or something. And for me, playing Counter-Strike is a bit intimidating because I know I'm just going to get owned. So much so, I don't even play or try Counter-Strike. So I'm I know I'm just going to get owned. It's not going to be fun. I'm going to get headshot every time because I haven't played in the last 30 years. Everyone else has. It's ridiculous. It's kind of the same with WoW now, right? It's been out 20 years. A lot of players have been playing a lot of that time. If you come in as a new player, it's just yeah, you're probably going to get owned. There's going to be a steep ass learning curve because the players are so embedded in the game. It's been out for so long.
Fighting a huge world boss. And in WoW, everything scales to your level, and you can always progress with your friends even if they are 20 levels ahead of you. The loot also scales to your level, and you are almost always throwing out your new sword or armor within a few hours. But personally, the most fun I've had in this game so far is when I moved on to an expansion called Spyro Dragonflight. Now this is where it gets fun. You get your own dragon. And honestly, this was super cool. It actually feels like a completely different game. My favorite part though is the flying. It's super satisfying, and you can even do these missions where you fly through these rings and you can customize your dragon. But this is only the tip of the iceberg of all the content that has been released over the past 2 decades. Now here comes the story of the game. Well, the one I did anyway. While a lot of quests are copy and paste, collect 10 swamp hippo toenails, which after a while does start to feel tedious and repetitive, and while in the beginning I was reading every single quest, after a while I did start to skip over reading them. But when it comes to the main storyline of the expansions, or this quest about some giant sword that apparently nobody can see, this is where it redeems itself. My only problem is that I hadn't played the older expansions, and the game forced me into one of the more recent ones called Battle of Azeroth, which means that I didn't know anything about the story.
is that true? Does the game force you into BFA or Dragonflight? Can you not, like, I thought you could choose. I haven't leveled a character in a long time, so I'm actually ignorant here. I thought you could choose which one you wanted to level through. You can change, it defaults you there, but you can kind of change, right? I thought you could change. It did for a while, it goes automatically, but you can then choose it. Okay. It doesn't force, okay, so it sets you in one spot, but you could then change if you wanted. But as a new player, that's probably really confusing because you don't really know how to change or do anything. You're kind of just like following the game. So if it sets you somewhere, you're probably just going to play as a new player. Yeah, because you wouldn't know how to do that if you're a new player. As an experienced player, you might know, okay, I can then play through Wrath if I wanted to. Okay.
Story that had happened beforehand, and the game never really catches you up on the details either. I mean, like, I arrived in my tutorial gear, and I was already being called the hero of Azeroth and being thanked for saving some princess, which for me never happened. But even just a quick overview of the events beforehand probably would have saved me a lot of confusion about what was happening. I carried on and actually found myself getting interested in the story. And this is where the game introduces more unique mechanics, a more cohesive story, and interesting characters. I really liked this character, who was the Lower of Death, Samdi, even though he would always talk shit to me after I died.
Well, look at you, the mighty hero.
But probably the most important part about Quest in WoW is that it gives you some incentive to actually explore the worlds, and it is huge. Like, there's so much to explore. I mean, I did this one quest for this dwarf dude, and it took me all over the map to some of the coolest looking places I had seen so far. It is so easy to get lost exploring for hours in this game. Sometimes I would take a break from leveling and questing just to go and explore new places all over the map. I don't know why, but my personal favorites were the swamp looking place with this big toad and the home of the cow people. I'm yet to play the older expansions to find out why exactly I am the hero of Azeroth, but after playing and enjoying this expansion, which some people seem to rate quite low in comparison to some others, I'm excited to see what more the story of this game has to offer. So, after playing for these few months, I got thinking, what's the goal in this game? There doesn't seem to be any specific ending, because they just keep releasing new expansions to continue the story. So how are people...
What was that?
Specific ending, because they just...
Corgis Unleashed. Wait, is this a leak of the new expansion? Wow. Yeah, corgis, guys. All right, so we saw pandas, we saw a bunch of furries and dragons and stuff. Next up, we have World of Warcraft corgis.
Keep releasing new expansions to continue the story. So how are people playing this for almost 2 decades and still finding enjoyment? I know that some people try to get rare mounts.
It's a good feeling.
Some people just farm raids or dungeons. Some play solely for nostalgia.
Hey guys,
Let's do this. Leroy Dragon!
Some do this.
You got a tight little man pussy on you, don't you? Oh, it stinks. Nice and good.
But I think what makes the game fun is the people you play with. The game basically forces you to find people to help you progress through the game, and in doing so, you meet some people who you end up playing with almost all of the time. While obviously there are some grumpy spoons out there who get angry at you for being new to the game, the majority of people are actually super cool, and they seem really happy that people are just now starting to play the game. People are always wanting to teach me new things, help me through dungeons, and show me around to some of their favorite places. One time, I came across these 2 players, and we just started dancing for some reason. They then invited me to their group and asked if I wanted to join them on a quest they were about to do. They also helped me out with some questions I had, like where to find rocks for this mining skill I just unlocked. And as I progressed further into the game, I eventually created my own guild and found my own small community of cool people. Some of the stories I've heard from people are how they've met their wife or made life friends from WoW. But even though I'm really enjoying the game, sometimes it does feel like I'm watching a movie after missing the first and most important half. And after hearing these stories, it feels like maybe I missed out on the reason why so many people love the game in the first place. But hey, you never know what the golden days are until you're in them, right? And maybe I'm in mine right now. So should you
well, it's interesting, right? Because, like, objectively, there are things about retail or current WoW that are objectively better than they were in the days of Classic. For me, and we've talked about this in depth, we don't have to go there. I don't want a debate started of, like, retail versus Classic. That's not my intention. But for me, it's something about more modern versions of the game have less soul. Right? They have less soul in them. In the old versions of the game, it really feels like you're playing an MMO. It feels like you're playing an RPG. You can get really engulfed in that. Now, in the more modern versions of the game, it's almost like there's so much quality of life that it's no longer an MMO. It's not really as much of an RPG. I guess in the traditional sense, it is an RPG, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like you're queuing a game, like a League of Legends lobby game, and there's like less soul in it. But the quality of life upgrades are objectively like better, right? But that the quality of life being added took away from the MMO feel of the game. So I feel like that's kind of the nuance here when people are like, oh, the game used to be so much better. It's like what they really mean is it was less quality of life and had more soul and felt more like an MMO. It's like kind of interesting to consider.
Try WoW? Absolutely. Especially if you can get friends to join you. And if not, no stress. I'm sure you'll find some along the way. So, my final rating. I'm going to give World of Warcraft
Hello? My
also,
internet? Okay.
should I play WoW Classic?
Just made an album 7 days, that's quick. Boobies going up and down. She's
Okay, yeah, WoW Classic. So the difference, what we were just talking about with WoW Classic is it's going to feel completely different. It's going to be slower pace, way less quality of life. It might be kind of confusing or annoying at some points, but like there's going to be a lot of like more soul role playing, a true MMO experience. So those are the differences, right? And yeah, maybe there'll be a new player reviews WoW Classic for the first time in a bit. Yo, thanks for linking that one, Taylor.